My fingers were drumming on the green felt of the blackjack table as the dealer dealt the cards with a hypnotic precision. The Bellagio casino lights in Las Vegas were twinkling all around me, a well-calculated escape from my life as a civil engineer in Chicago. It was my monthly ritual to forget about responsibilities, reports, and the emptiness of a house that had felt too big since my divorce 5 years ago. At 50, I found a predictable comfort in that lonely routine. Until that night. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Mind if I join you with the red chips? The voice was soft, with a light accent I couldn't quite place right away. I looked up and felt something rare, a sudden thump in my chest. The young man next to me smiled as he slid over to the empty seat. His tousled dark hair framed a face with delicate features, but it was his eyes that caught my attention. A deep blue, almost hypnotic. "Sure, make yourself at home," I replied, trying to sound casual as I adjusted my posture. "Thanks. My name's Ryan," he said, extending his hand with a confidence that didn't quite match his youthful looks. "Thomas," I introduced myself, noticing the contrast between my calloused hand and his, soft yet firm. Ryan played with a fascinating impulsiveness. While I calculated probabilities, he seemed to dance with luck. When he lost, he laughed heartily. When he won, his eyes sparkled with such intensity that I found myself looking away. "Do you play like you live, Thomas?" he asked after watching my conservative strategy for a few rounds. "What do you mean?" "Cautious. Methodical." Ryan leaned in slightly. "Never betting more than you can afford to lose." There was something unsettling about how easily he read me. "And do you always bet everything?" "Not with cards," he answered with a half smile. "But in life?" "Absolutely." I found out that Ryan was 23 and had moved from a tiny town in Colorado to Las Vegas only 6 months ago. A painter, he earned a living selling his canvases to tourists on the Strip, dreaming of having his own exhibition someday. "Are you here for work or pleasure?" he asked as we left the table, moving over to the bar after a couple of hours of playing. "Escape," I admitted, surprised by my own sudden honesty. "I come every month, a little well-planned getaway." Ryan ordered a neat whiskey, the same as mine. "Running from what exactly?" "From the routine. From loneliness, maybe." The bourbon warmed my throat. "From the silence of an empty house." The hours slipped by as we shared stories. The age gap evaporated between sips of whiskey and genuine laughs. Ryan talked about art with contagious passion. I recounted stories of architectural projects in different parts of the world. "Let's take a walk," he suddenly suggested. "The hotel garden has an ice sculpture exhibition." The Nevada night air was surprisingly cool as we strolled among crystalline figures lit by colored lights. Our shoulders brushed occasionally, sending inexplicable electric tingles along my skin. "I never understood why people are so afraid of unexpected connections," Ryan commented, as we stopped by a sculpture of a bird in mid-flight. I swallowed hard, feeling my pulse speed up. Maybe because of the unknown, or what others might think. Ryan turned to me, his eyes reflecting the blue of the sculpture lights. "And you, Thomas? Are you afraid of what you're feeling right now?" The question hung between us like a quiet challenge. Something inside me, a wall carefully built over decades, began to crack. "I don't really know what I'm feeling," I answered honestly. "You're lying," Ryan smiled, not with malice but with a disarming intimacy. "I can see it in your eyes." My breathing grew shallow as he took a step toward me. My carefully organized life felt as if it were teetering on the edge of a precipice. If you liked the beginning of this story, leave your like to find out what happens when Ryan invites Thomas to see the sunrise from the hotel's VIP room. The night carried on as we wandered through the Bellagio gardens. The fountains danced to the rhythm of some distant classical music, spraying droplets that shone under the artificial lights like thousands of diamonds suspended in midair. Ryan suddenly stopped, turning to me with a look that made my stomach drop. "I have access to one of the VIP hotel rooms," he said in a low voice, almost a whisper. "It has a panoramic view of the city. We could continue our conversation there, more comfortably." I hesitated, feeling the weight of that invitation. The implications hung between us as heavy as the scent of the exotic flowers around us. Part of me, the rational side shaped by decades of social expectations, was screaming to politely decline and head back to my own room. But another part, one I barely recognized, throbbed with an almost painful curiosity. "How do you have access to a VIP room?" I asked, buying time as my mind processed the whirlwind of mixed emotions. Ryan smiled, that enigmatic smile that had intrigued me all night. "I sold 3 paintings to the hotel manager last month. He said I'd always have a spot when the hotel wasn't completely packed." He tilted his head slightly. So, what do you say? Just a chat, nothing more if you're not into it. The private elevator took us silently up to the 36th floor. I kept my eyes fixed on the digital numbers blinking with every floor, all too aware of the small space we shared and the subtle scent of sandalwood that wafted from Ryan. When the doors opened to reveal an elegantly decorated corridor, it felt like stepping into foreign territory without a map or a compass. The suite was stunning, spacious, decorated in a sophisticated minimalist style that made it look even larger. An entire wall of glass offered an amazing view of the lit-up strip, with neon colors reflecting against the desert night sky like an artificial aurora. Wow, was all I could say as I approached the window. Impressive, isn't it? Ryan appeared beside me, his reflection merging with the nighttime scene in the dark glass, like we're floating over a sea of lights. We stood there for a moment side by side, soaking in the view. The silence between us was thick, laden with unspoken possibilities. I noticed our reflections merging in the window, me, with my gray hair at the temples and broad shoulders slightly bent by the invisible burden of years. Him, with the upright posture of youth, his face still untouched by time. "Want a drink?" he eventually asked, breaking the reflective spell. "Please." Ryan walked over to the elegant bar in the corner of the room and selected a pricey-looking bottle of bourbon. "You've always been so reserved, Thomas," he said as he poured 2 generous servings into crystal glasses. "Reserved?" "Yeah." He moved closer, handing me one of the glasses. "It's like there's an invisible wall around you. I see your eyes observing, analyzing, but you rarely let on what you really think or feel." I took a long sip of the drink, savoring the brief burn down my throat. Maybe it's just a habit after living this way for so long. "And what's it like living like that?" Ryan sat on the wide leather sofa, motioning for me to join him. I sat down, maintaining a respectful distance. Safe, predictable, and lonely? Our eyes met. Sometimes. Ryan leaned in a little. "Don't you ever wonder what's beyond those walls you built? Does all that safety feel worth the constant feeling of being on the outside looking in?" His words struck a deep chord in me, a disturbing truth I had buried under layers of rationalization. "It wasn't always like this," I confessed, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. "There was a time when I felt more alive, more present." "What changed?" "Everything. Nothing." I shrugged. "I think I just followed the script everyone expected of me. College, career, marriage. Before I knew it, I was so busy building the life I thought I should have that I forgot to ask if it was the life I actually wanted." Ryan nodded slowly, his blue eyes never leaving mine. "It's never too late to ask that question." A quiet pause settled over us, heavy with unspoken meaning. The city pulsed out there, a kaleidoscope of constantly shifting lights. "Can I show you something?" Ryan asked, standing up suddenly. Without waiting for an answer, he walked over to a leather bag in the corner of the room and pulled out a small sketchbook. He sat back down, this time closer, and the warmth of his body radiated in the small space between us. "I like to draw people who intrigue me," he explained as he opened the book. "It captures something that photographs can't." Inside the pages were depictions of diverse faces, an elderly woman with deep wrinkles and gentle eyes, a couple laughing in a cafe, children playing in a fountain. The strokes were firm, confident, capturing not only physical appearance but something deeper, an essence. "You have talent," I said sincerely. Ryan flipped through a few more pages, then paused. "I did this one earlier today at the casino, before I sat down at your table." I looked at the drawing and felt a shiver run down my spine. There I was, focused on the cards, but there was something in the eyes the artist had captured, a melancholy, a loneliness I never realized was so visible. "How did you—" I couldn't find the words. "I saw you the night before too," Ryan admitted. "Something about your isolation caught my attention. The way you observed everything around you while keeping your distance, as if you were in an invisible bubble." I swallowed hard, feeling strangely exposed. "Then why did you come over to me?" Ryan closed the sketchbook gently. "Because I recognized something familiar in that isolation." His eyes met mine again. "And because I saw your gaze change when you thought no one was watching. There was a hunger there, a thirst for something beyond what you allowed yourself." The air between us seemed to sizzle. I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs, an insistent rhythm filling the entire room. "And what do you think I'm hungry for?" My voice came out rougher than I intended. Ryan set the sketchbook aside and, in one fluid motion, moved even closer. "For authenticity, for real connection." His hand rested lightly on mine, as gentle as a leaf. for feeling without calculating consequences. His touch sent waves of warmth along my arm. I felt like I should pull my hand away, get up, thank him for the night, and leave. That was the rational, appropriate response. Instead, I turned my palm upward, our fingers interlocking almost on their own. "Ryan, I hesitated, the words jumbling in my head. "You're so young, I'm so old. This is now," he interrupted softly. "Just this moment. No labels, no expectations." His other hand rose to touch my face, fingers tracing the line of my jaw so gently that it made me close my eyes for a second. "When was the last time you allowed yourself to just feel, Thomas?" The question hung in the air. I couldn't even remember. Years? Decades? The sensation of his fingers on my skin felt like a thread connecting me to something long forgotten. The simple pleasure of human touch without complications or hidden agendas. When I opened my eyes, his face was so close I could see every nuance of that hypnotic blue, every eyelash, the soft blush on his cheeks. Time seemed to slow, every second stretching into infinity. "Can I?" he whispered, so close that his warm breath brushed my lips. In response, I closed the distance between us. The first contact was hesitant, almost experimental. His lips were soft, carrying a trace of the bourbon we'd shared. A dizzying sensation overcame me, as if the ground had suddenly vanished beneath my feet. My hands found his hair, the silky strands slipping through my fingers as the kiss deepened. Ryan moved with the fluidity of water, sliding onto my lap without breaking contact. The pressure of his body against mine awoke something primitive that had been dormant for far too long. My hand slid down his back, feeling his muscles flex under my touch. When we broke apart for air, his eyes were half closed and his lips slightly parted. The sight sent a surge of desire so intense it almost hurt. "You're overthinking," he murmured, pressing his forehead against mine. "I can see it in your eyes. Stop analyzing. Just feel." I tried to laugh, but it came out more as a broken sigh. "A habit from a lifetime. Then form new habits," he suggested, his lips trailing a path along my neck that made my skin tingle. "Start now." His hands found the buttons on my shirt and unfastened them with an assurance that spoke of experience. With every inch of skin exposed, his lips followed, leaving a trail of fire that consumed what little reserve I had left. "Ryan," I mumbled, my voice nearly unrecognizable even to myself. "Are you sure? I could be like your father." He paused, looking up into my eyes. "The only certainty I have is this moment, and in it, we're just two men who desire one another." His fingers traced my collarbone. "Age is just an arbitrary number that doesn't define who we are or what we feel." Those words melted away my final resistance. I pulled him in for another kiss, this time without hesitation, without fear. My shirt slipped off my shoulders, followed by his. The feeling of skin on skin sent electric shocks down my spine. We moved as if in a dance. Every touch, every whispered word guiding us into a space that was both strange and familiar. The city lights created hypnotic patterns on our bare skin as we explored every inch of each other with a reverence that felt almost religious. When we finally became one, it was as if something inside me, something I hadn't even known was broken, was finally healing. The synchronized motion of our bodies was like waves in an endless ocean, carrying us higher and farther away from everything we knew, toward an uncharted horizon. Ryan spoke my name almost like a prayer, his eyes never leaving mine even at the peak of our pleasure. In that moment of utter vulnerability, I saw in his gaze not just desire but recognition, a deep connection that went beyond the physical. Outside, the city kept pulsing, indifferent to the transformation happening inside those walls. When we finally separated, panting and satisfied, we stayed entwined, neither of us willing to break the spell we had created. The first lights of dawn began to paint the horizon as I woke up, not even remembering falling asleep. Ryan was sitting on the edge of the window, completely naked, watching the sunrise with a thoughtful expression. The golden light bathed his silhouette, turning him into an almost mythological vision, like Apollo contemplating the world he was about to light up. "How long have you been awake?" I asked in a husky voice. He turned, a soft smile playing on his lips. "A few minutes. I didn't want to miss this." He gestured toward the blazing horizon. "Not every day do we witness a new beginning." I got up, wrapping the sheet around my waist, and joined him by the window. The city looked different in the morning light, less flashy, more real. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, his fingers finding mine in the folds of the fabric. I considered the question carefully. Was I okay? Should I feel regret? Confusion? Maybe shame? Instead, I felt a strange peace, as if I had finally returned somewhere I hadn't even known I'd lost. Better than I've been in a long time, I replied honestly. Ryan smiled, his blue eyes lighting up with something like relief. Good, because I am too. We sat like that for a moment, watching a new day awaken. Not just another sunrise, I realized, but the beginning of something I couldn't yet name or define. And for the first time in decades, uncertainty didn't terrify me. It invited me. Breakfast came at 9, discreetly delivered by an impeccably uniformed staff member who avoided eye contact. Perfection in discretion. Ryan had ordered it all. Fresh fruit, omelets, warm croissants, and freshly squeezed orange juice. A feast fit for kings, served on the private balcony overlooking the distant mountains that embrace Las Vegas. We sat in silence for a few moments, simply enjoying the morning breeze and the food. There was a strange domesticity in that moment, as if we'd shared hundreds of breakfasts before. The uncanny familiarity made me smile at my coffee cup. "What's so funny?" Ryan asked, nibbling on a strawberry. "Just thinking about how unlikely situations can feel so natural." I looked up into his eyes. "Last night you were a stranger. Today, we're sharing toast." Ryan smiled, that smile that lit up his eyes. Life is made of these moments, don't you think? Unexpected connections that show up when you least expect them. I nodded, feeling a twinge of melancholy. Reality was starting to seep back into the bubble we'd created. In a few hours, I'd be at the airport, returning to my orderly life in Chicago. Ryan would carry on in Las Vegas, painting and living each day with that intensity that came so naturally to him. "What's your flight?" he asked, as if reading my thoughts. 4:30, I replied, spreading jelly on a piece of toast more out of habit than hunger. Ryan nodded, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "Enough time for a little trip around the city? There's a contemporary art museum I think you'd like." The offer caught me off guard. I had assumed that last night had been just that, a one-night encounter destined to remain an isolated moment, without bleeding over into my real world. "Do you want to spend the day with me?" The question emerged more vulnerably than I intended. Ryan tilted his head, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite pin down. "Thomas, what happened last night? It wasn't just sex for me." He reached out over the table, his fingers lightly brushing mine. I felt a connection that I rarely experience. Something clenched in my chest, a mix of hope and terror. "Ryan, I live 2,000 miles away. I have a life set up, responsibilities. You're 23, just starting out. This can't—" "I'm not asking you to pack up and move here," he interrupted, a playful tone in his voice. "I'm just inviting you for a day at the museum." I felt my cheeks warm. "Sorry, I guess I'm used to anticipating problems. Another habit that needs breaking," he observed with a smile. "So, what do you say? A few hours of art and conversation before you head back to your regular life?" The proposal was simple and uncomplicated. Just a few extra hours in that alternate reality before returning to my own world. "I'd love that," I replied, surprising even myself with how quickly I answered. The museum was an oasis of tranquility away from the neon lights and constant noise of the Strip. We wandered slowly through the galleries, with Ryan occasionally explaining techniques or historical contexts I'd never known. His passion for art was contagious, and his knowledge impressive for someone so young. "How did you learn so much?" I asked as we observed a contemporary installation made of neon tubes and mirrors. "Books, the internet, and many trips to galleries." He shrugged. "When you really love something, learning feels effortless, you know? It's more like breathing." We reflected in silence in front of the piece. The tubes of light created a maze of infinite reflections in strategically placed mirrors. It was both disorienting and fascinating. You never quite knew where reality ended and illusion began. "It's kind of how I feel right now," I confessed, referring to the installation. "Like I'm caught between realities, not knowing where I'm really standing." Ryan interlaced his fingers with mine, a gesture that would have felt overly intimate just 24 hours earlier but now felt perfectly natural. "Maybe we don't always need to know exactly where we are. Maybe the space between the certainties is where life really happens." His words stayed with me for the rest of the afternoon as we roamed the city. Las Vegas by daylight was different, less glamorous, more real. We saw the parts tourists rarely visit: small local cafes, hidden galleries, parks where locals strolled with their dogs, completely unfazed by the Strip's frenzy. At some point, I realized I was having more fun than I had in years. Ryan's company brought a lightness, a spontaneity that had long been missing from my meticulously planned life. When it came time for me to head to the airport, a heavy silence fell between us. We were in a small park, sitting on a bench beneath the shade of a scraggly tree that somehow survived in the desert heat. "So," Ryan began, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing patterns on the back of the bench. "So?" I repeated, unsure of what to say to someone I'd known for less than 24 hours, but who somehow had pierced through decades of guarded isolation. "I could show you my studio next time," Ryan suggested casually, as if another time was already in the cards. "It's in a converted old warehouse. The natural light in the morning is amazing." I looked at him, trying to figure out if he was serious. "Ryan, I'm not sure there will be a next time." He met my gaze, a calm determination in his eyes. "I think there will be." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I saw how you looked at me when you thought I wasn't watching." A gentle smile played on his lips. "And because I felt the same." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's complicated. Our lives are so different. The distance, the age. Life is complicated," Ryan agreed. "But sometimes the complications are worth it." He pulled a small notepad from his pocket and tore out a page, scribbling something on it. "My number, and my email address, for when you decide you're ready for a few more complications in your organized life." I took the paper, folding it carefully before tucking it into my wallet. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything." Ryan leaned in, his lips meeting mine in a soft, almost chaste kiss compared to the passion of the night before. "Just promise you'll think of me every now and then." "That," I replied with a reluctant smile, "is something I can promise." The taxi to the airport arrived right on time. Ryan insisted on accompanying me all the way, holding my hand throughout the ride as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When we reached the terminal, we got out for one final goodbye. "It was extraordinary meeting you, Ryan," I said, realizing how little those words captured everything I felt. "Likewise, Thomas." His blue eyes stayed fixed on mine. "You know, I don't believe in coincidences. When I saw you at the casino the day before yesterday, sitting alone at that table, something told me I needed to meet you. And now? Regrets?" He laughed, a clear sound that echoed in the afternoon air. "Not at all. You?" I thought about last night, the unexpected connection, the feeling of being completely present for the first time in years. "No," I answered honestly. "Not at all." Ryan moved closer, adjusting the collar of my shirt in a strangely domestic gesture. "Remember what we talked about at the museum, about living in that space between certainties?" I nodded, feeling an unexpected lump in my throat. "I'll try." "And Thomas?" His eyes shone with quiet determination. "See you soon." It wasn't a question but an affirmation, as if he could already see a future I couldn't yet imagine. Before I could respond, he pulled me in for one last kiss right there on the busy sidewalk outside the airport. A kiss that ignored curious glances, possible judgments, all the complications I had mentally listed. When we pulled apart, I felt something different inside me, as if a part of me that had been asleep for years had finally woken up. "See you soon," I repeated, surprised at the firmness in my own voice. With one last smile, Ryan walked away, melting into the crowd. I watched until I could no longer make him out before turning to enter the terminal. During the flight back, I stared out the window at the clouds, all tinged with the orange hues of the setting sun. I thought of the life waiting for me in Chicago, the immaculate yet empty apartment, the predictable routine at the office, the solitary dinners. And then I thought of Ryan, of his passion for art, and his ability to live every moment without fear of tomorrow. I picked up my phone and started a new message. I typed the number I had already memorized from the folded paper in my wallet. "When's the best time to visit Las Vegas again?" I sent, a shiver of anticipation running down my spine. The reply came almost immediately. "Now's always a good time. My studio and I will be waiting." I smiled at the screen, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. The plane continued its journey through the sky, taking me back to my life. But for the first time in years, that life didn't seem like a pre-written path. Instead, it stretched out before me like a blank canvas, waiting to be filled with new colors, experiences, and connections. Next time I visit the Bellagio Casino, it won't be to escape my life. It'll be to add another chapter to it. A chapter that began with a pair of blue eyes and the courage of a young artist who saw something in me I had long forgotten. If this story moved you as much as it moved me, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Share in the comments if you've ever experienced an unexpected connection that changed your perspective on life. Sometimes our most significant moments happen when we least expect them, with people we never thought we'd meet. Until the next video, where I'll keep sharing stories that make us question, feel, and above all, live every moment to the fullest.